Nobody has to lock a door if they control what's on the other side of it. At the same time, nobody has to force a choice if they control what a choice even looks like. You felt this, a night that disappeared into your phone and you still can't remember picking it up. A relationship you drifted into or out of without quietly choosing either. A purchase that felt urgent an hour ago and absolutely pointless now that it's actually on your desk. You'd call all of this your choice, but something else chose the menu. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a video about 8 systems built by nobody in particular, coordinated by no one, that doesn't need to control you, because they only need to control what's in front of you. What you see first, what earns a reaction, what feels normal. They compete with each other almost all the time, but they're all chasing the same 4 things inside you: attention, desire, identity, and the fear of being left alone. And by the end of this video, you'll see the entire machinery, and once you see it, you don't get to unsee it. Chapter 1: The Attention Machine. Start with your attention, everything else is in the downstream of it. In 2004, UC Irvine researcher Gloria Mark started measuring stopwatch in hand to actually check how long people could look at one screen before switching to another. Back then, it was about 2.5 minutes. She kept measuring, and by 2012, it went to 75 seconds. In the most of recent studies, independently replicated by other researchers, that data comes down to a shocking 47 seconds. That's not a story about willpower collapsing, it's a story about an environment getting radically better at interrupting you. Here's why. In the 1950s, psychologist P.F. Skinner found that animals work hardest not for a predictable reward but for the one that might come, which is unpredictable, variable, or occasionally huge. It's the same logic underneath a slot machine. Pull the lever, maybe nothing, or maybe something. That uncertainty, ladies and gentlemen, is the hook and not the price itself. Every feed competing for your attention runs on that same principle. The next post might be boring, or it might be the best thing you've seen all week. You don't know until you actually go ahead and check it. A platform doesn't make money when you're actually satisfied, it makes money when you're still looking, and once attention has a price, everything trying to capture it starts competing on the same terms. Chapter 2: The Novelty Machine. That principle, unpredictable reward, didn't stay confined to feeds, it reached one of the oldest drives in the human brain. Look, for the most of human history, sexual novelty was scarce, expensive, or socially risky. Today, it's none of those things. It's unlimited, it's private, and sometimes it's just one tap away. What does that actually do to people, you may ask? And the honest answer is more complicated and less dramatic than either side of the internet argument wants it to be. Meta analysis of dozens of studies find a real but small negative association between frequent pornography use and relationship satisfaction. Strongest not when one partner actually uses it, but when partners use it at very different rates from each other. The more contested claim is that pornography is quietly causing erectile dysfunction in young men and has real support. Clinicians actually report more young patients, and some of whom have improved after stopping. But it isn't recognized as a clinical diagnosis, and controlled studies looking for a consistent link also haven't found one. Now, that's not proof that the entire claim that I'm trying to make is actually false. It's just proof that we don't fully know it yet. What we can say for sure or for certain is that a brain built to notice novelty is now getting an unlimited supply of it, and unlimited supply quietly changes what starts to feel ordinary. Think about that for a minute. Chapter 3: The Body You Live In. Novelty reshapes desire. Something else has been reshaping the body underneath it. In 2007, researchers publishing in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism found something they didn't expect. Testosterone levels in American men had dropped substantially between the late 1980s and the mid 2000s. Even comparing men of the same age, even after accounting for obesity and smoking, about 17% in less than 2 decades. Obesity looked like the obvious explanation, so a separate study actually tracked Air Force veterans for about 20 years. The men who didn't gain weight still saw significant declines. More recent data goes on to show that that drop has now reached obsolete and young adult men too. Nobody has found one clean cause, and the honest list is absolutely long. Rising obesity, less physical activity, chronic sleep debt, chronic stress, environmental exposures, changing diets, probably all of it together in ways still being untangled. Here's the part that should stop you. This isn't a story about some ideology, it's biology quietly absorbing an entire way of life. And it was already happening years before anyone started arguing about what it actually fundamentally means. Chapter 4: The War for Your Identity. If the body absorbs its environment quietly, identity does something louder. It fights back. Political scientists call a specific kind of division effective polarization, not disagreeing about policy but disliking people on the other side personally as if they were a different kind of person altogether. Platforms don't need to invent that hostility, they just need to rank it higher. Outrage toward an outgroup earns more engagement than nuance actually does. So, feed optimizes for engagement will almost by accident keep surfacing the version of your opponents that make you the angriest. In one 2024 field experiment, researchers changed a feed ranking algorithm to reduce exposure to that kind of content. 1 week produced a drop in polarization roughly equal to 3 years of change, and it worked the same regardless of which side someone was on. That detail, ladies and gentlemen, it actually matters a lot because this isn't one ideology being more sophisticated than the other. It's actually that the machine doesn't care who you are, it rewards the most divisive version of every side equally, which means the outrage you feel certain is may not be true about the other side at all. It just may be a reaction to the most extreme silver to them. A silver an algorithm chose because it knew that it would absolutely go ahead and click it. Chapter 5: The Dating Market. The same sorting logic that shapes what you believe now shapes who you love. In 2013, about 1 in 10 American adults had been using a dating app or site. By 2022, according to Pew Research, that number had nearly tripled to 30%. Today, roughly 1 in 10 partnered adults meet their current partner online, and amongst partnered adults under 30, it's 1 in 5. That's not a scandal. Millions of real relationships actually started this way. But something changed underneath that convenience. Courtship used to be slow and thick with information. How someone laughed, what their friends were like, how they treated a stranger. Dating apps compress a person into a profile, sorted, filtered, judged in the time it takes to actually go ahead and swipe. Nobody designed romance to feel like an application process, but once a person becomes a stack of photos to sort through, the marketplace starts behaving like that on every other marketplace, for men and women alike, rewarding whosoever performs best in the format and not necessarily whosoever is actually best for you. Chapter 6: Consumerism and Manufactured Desire. Every system so far has been sorting you. This one is actually more direct. It sells you a feeling and calls it a product. In 1929, Edward Briand's Sigmund Freud's nephew and the architect of modern public relations had a problem to solve for a cigarette company. Women smoking in public was still taboo. So Bernians hired women to march in New York's Easter parade with cigarettes in hand and told the newspapers that they were actually carrying torches of freedom. It worked brilliantly. Cigarette sales among women climbed. Bernias hadn't sold a product, he'd attached it to an unrelated powerful feeling: liberation. He called this the engineering of consent. His own writings put it plainly: reverse the sales process until the customer is the one asking for the sale. The idea became the blueprint for a century of advertising. Now, here's what this product does. Instead of here's the person you'll become, here's the gap in your life you didn't notice until now. Because if you can go ahead and manufacture the dissatisfaction, you barely have to sell the cure to it at all. Chapter 7: Loneliness and the Collapse of Community. So, attention gets captured, desire gets manufactured, and in the space left over where communities used to be, something quieter has been actually happening. In 2023, the US Surgeon General issued a formal advisory. Roughly half of American adults report feeling lonely. The health risk they wrote is comparable to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Fewer than 1 in 5 people experiencing chronic loneliness even recognize it as a problem in their own life. Government time use data shows where the hours went. 20 years ago, Americans spent about 45 minutes a day socializing with other people. Today, it's about 35 minutes, falling fastest among people who are in the age group of 15 to 24. The group you would actually expect to be the most connected generation in history. Over that same stretch, time spent on digital leisure, that is games, feeds, and videos, rose substantially. Nobody chose isolation on purpose. It arrived in small traits. For example, an evening scrolling instead of calling a friend, an errand run alone instead of with a company, one convenient decision at a time. Convenience, it turns out, ladies and gentlemen, is one of the quietest ways to lose something you didn't know you were actually spending. And finally, chapter 8: the most powerful form of control. Here is what all 7 of these systems have in common. None of them need to force you into anything. They only needed to shape what was the easiest, what was in front of you, and what felt normal. There's a name for this in behavioral economics: choice architecture. In 2008, the researchers who coined the term 1 year later won a Nobel Prize for this body of work. They went on to showcase something enormous. You can reliably change what people do without banning a single option. And you do this just by rearranging the environment around their decision. Put fruit at eye level and people eat more fruit. Make saving the default and people save more. Nobody is coerced. Most never even notice. Now, run that same principle in reverse at scale across 8 systems that all reward the same 4 things in you, which is attention, desire, identity, and the fear of being alone. And you get something that looks from a distance almost like a conspiracy. It isn't one, nobody needed to coordinate it. Every system here was simply optimizing for itself, and every optimization happened to land on the same handful of human weakness. That's the actual discovery. Control was never the plan. It just happened when enough separate systems, all chasing your attention and your money, arrived at the same conclusion. The easiest way to move a person is never to push them. It's to rearrange what they're standing in front of and let them believe they walk there on their own. So here's the question worth sitting with after this video ends. It's not who's controlling me, nobody is. Not the way people have actually shown to people on the internet, right? That picture is absolutely wrong. The real question is actually much more smaller and much more fundamental, and it doesn't let go as easily. Of everything you want right now, the person, the purchase, the argument, you're actually right or wrong, how much of it did you actually arrive at consciously, and how much of it was just the nearest door in a hallway someone else designed for you? You don't have to escape the hallway. Most of us can't, not entirely. You just have to remember that it's there and it's standing. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the moment you can see the architecture, you stop mistaking it for the world.